Hey guys, welcome back. If you're still awake, congratulations. If you're half asleep, that's also perfect, because tonight's energy is softer than Columbus's understanding of geography. We're drifting deeper into the story of a man whose reputation has gone from heroic explorer to controversial historical hot potato, depending on who you ask and what decade you're living in. So let's get comfortable. Slow breath in, slow breath out. And let's drift into the part of Columbus's life where everything becomes a complicated mix of bureaucracy, chaos, and the slow unraveling of one man's big legacy. Columbus the governor. Or, more accurately, Columbus the guy in over his head. When we last left him, Columbus had returned to the islands with 17 ships, hundreds of settlers, and a royal expectation to turn the Caribbean into Spain's new cash machine. Unfortunately, Columbus's skill set included insisting he was right about Asia, but definitely not running a functioning colony. Managing people was not his strong point. Patience wasn't either. Neither was empathy or basic organizational skills. The colony fell into disorder almost immediately. Settlers expected instant wealth and easy land. Instead, they found long, sweaty days, food shortages, diseases none of them had names for, and Columbus making increasingly questionable decisions while pacing around like a stressed-out middle manager. He had to deal with starvation, mutiny, and Taino resistance. And instead of calming things down, he responded with the energy of angry dad on a road trip. Harsh punishments, new rules, and the general vibe of everyone do what I say or else. Not exactly inspiring leadership. Meanwhile, the Taínos struggled under Spanish demands. Those who protested were punished. Those who obeyed still suffered. And Columbus's brothers, who helped him govern, weren't exactly role models either. His brother Bartolomeo was harsh and rigid. His other brother, Diego, had the energy of someone who'd lost the instruction manual on how to be in charge. It was a dysfunctional family business, except the business was colonization. The Crown starts getting bad reviews. You know things are going downhill when your own men send complaint letters to the king and queen saying, "Hey, you might want to check on Columbus." And they did. The Spanish monarchy sent an investigator named Francisco de Bobadilla. Think of him as the 15th century version of a corporate auditor. Polite smile, fancy clothes, and the quiet power to ruin your entire career. When Bobadilla arrived, he saw a colony in chaos. Settlers starving, natives dying, punishments that made everyone uncomfortable, and Columbus sitting in the middle of it all, insisting everything was fine. Bobadilla disagreed strongly. He arrested Columbus, put him in chains, and sent him back to Spain. Not exactly the triumphant return Columbus had been imagining. Columbus in chains, the most dramatic moment of his life. When Columbus walked through Spain wearing chains, he milked the drama like a seasoned actor. He insisted he had been betrayed, that he was the victim of jealous enemies, that everything he did was perfectly reasonable. This was, of course, not accurate. But Columbus had a gift for storytelling. He knew how to present himself as the misunderstood genius. Queen Isabella, who had a soft spot for him, ordered the chains removed and restored some of his dignity. But she didn't give him back his governorship. That job was gone forever. Even the Spanish monarchy had limits. Still, they allowed him to attempt one more voyage. Because, why not send him out again? What's the worst that could happen? The fourth voyage, the one nobody talked about. Columbus's final voyage is like the forgotten sequel that no one really asked for. He wasn't allowed to go back to Hispaniola, which was probably for the best. Instead, he sailed along the coasts of Central America, convinced still that he was really close to Asia. He explored places like Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama, while muttering to himself that Japan had to be just over there. Spoiler, it was not. This voyage was plagued by storms, shipwrecks, and general misery. At one point, Columbus and his crew were stranded on Jamaica for almost a year. Supplies were low, morale was low. Columbus's sanity was questionable. In one famously weird moment, he convinced the local Jamaicans to help him by predicting a lunar eclipse and claiming he could make the moon disappear if they didn't obey. It worked. The moon vanished, and the locals were terrified. Columbus acted like he was doing magic, not astronomy he had memorized. It was one of the few times he planned something correctly. Coming home for the last time. By the time Columbus returned to Spain in 1504, he was sick, tired, and emotionally drained. He was no longer a hero. He was politically sidelined. Isabella, who had been his greatest supporter, died soon after, and without her, his influence faded rapidly. He spent his last 2 years writing letters, complaining about everything, and insisting he deserved more wealth, more titles, and more credit. A very on-brand ending for him. He died in 1506, still convinced he had reached Asia, still insisting he had discovered a new route to the Indies, still refusing to accept that he actually stumbled onto a continent that Europeans didn't know existed. In a way, it's poetic. He was wrong from the beginning and wrong until the very end. After Columbus, the myth-making begins. Here's the interesting part. Columbus wasn't immediately hailed as a massive hero after his death. For decades, he was mostly a footnote, one of many explorers. His fame rose and fell depending on the political mood of Europe. He wasn't forgotten, but he wasn't the star of history books either. It wasn't until the 18th and 19th centuries, especially in the United States, that his legacy got an extreme makeover. Early Americans wanted national heroes. They wanted someone who symbolized discovery, someone who represented the idea of a new world. Columbus was a convenient choice. Sure, he never set foot in North America, but the U.S. rebranded him anyway. They named cities after him, rivers, streets, even a national holiday. They made statues, wrote poems, drew heroic paintings of him pointing heroically at the horizon, looking far more noble than he ever appeared in real life. It was marketing, historical PR, the kind of makeover that would make reality TV jealous. Columbus the icon and Columbus the controversy. Fast forward to the modern era, and things get messy again. Historians started digging deeper. Indigenous communities began telling their side of the story. And suddenly, Columbus's image cracked like an old ceramic plate. He went from brave explorer to problematic figure, depending on who you asked and how loudly they were speaking. Some people see him as a symbol of courage, the man who opened the age of exploration, an important figure in world history. Others see him as the beginning of colonization, a bringer of suffering, the man responsible for systems that exploited indigenous peoples. The truth? He's both. A mix of ambition, cruelty, courage, delusion, intelligence, and ignorance, blended into one very complicated human being. So, hero or villain? That's the question everyone asks, right? But history rarely gives simple answers. Columbus wasn't a cartoon villain. He wasn't a flawless hero either. He was a deeply flawed, deeply driven man with bold ideas and harmful actions. He opened routes that changed the world. He also unleashed tragedies that shaped centuries. He sought glory. He caused suffering. He dreamed big. He mismanaged bigger. He stood at the crossroads of two worlds, and he handled that responsibility with the grace of a man juggling knives in the dark. So, calling him one thing, hero or villain, oversimplifies everything. He was both, and neither, and something in between. Complicated, messy, human. How history remembers him today. In the present day, Columbus's legacy is debated more fiercely than ever. Some cities celebrate Columbus Day, others replace it with Indigenous Peoples Day. Statues are raised in one place and removed in another. School textbooks rewrite chapters, activists protest, scholars argue, politicians pretend to understand history. The internet develops strong opinions overnight. Columbus becomes less of a person and more of a symbol. A symbol of exploration for some, a symbol of oppression for others, a symbol of a past we're still trying to understand. And honestly, that's why we talk about him at all. Not because he was perfect, not because he was monstrous, but because he represents the complicated, messy intersection of human ambition and human consequence. A gentle drift to tomorrow. So, here we are, 3 parts in, still drifting through the quiet ways of the 15th century, watching one man's reputation rise, fall, twist, and turn like a ship caught in eternal wind. We'll glide even deeper in the next part into how Columbus shaped the world after him, the myths that refuse to die, and the long, slow evolution of how we teach and understand his story. If you're still awake, impressive. If you're asleep, perfect. Either way, when you're ready,